Velar Station hung in the darkness between stars like a metal flower that had grown too large for its stem. Ships of every size and shape docked along its many arms, bringing goods from 100 worlds to trade in its crowded markets. The station belonged to no single species. It was neutral ground, a place where anyone could do business if they had something worth selling. Myra was 8 years old, and she thought Velar Station was the most wonderful place she had ever seen. She walked beside her mother through the commerce district, her eyes wide as she tried to look at everything at once. Strange aliens moved past them in the crowd. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated on cushions of air or crawled on many limbs. The air smelled like spices she could not name and metals she had never touched. Her mother, Dr. Sarah, held Myra's hand firmly as they navigated the busy corridor. Sarah was a who studied alien life forms, and this trip to Velar Station was supposed to be simple. Pick up some rare biological samples. Let Myra see a bit of the galaxy beyond their colony world. Return home within a week. "Can we get something to eat?" Myra asked, pointing at a food stall where a four-armed vendor was cooking something that sizzled and popped. "After I finish my meeting," Sarah said. "Stay close to me, okay? This station can be confusing." Myra nodded, but her attention had already wandered to a display case filled with glowing crystals. She had never seen anything like them. Each crystal pulsed with soft light in different colors, and she wondered if they were alive. The trouble started without warning. One moment, the commerce district was filled with the normal sounds of trade and conversation. The next moment, those sounds were replaced by screams and the sharp crack of weapons fire. Myra felt her mother's hand tighten around hers as Sarah pulled her toward a side corridor. "What's happening?" Myra asked, fear making her voice high and thin. "I don't know, just stay with me." But the crowd had become a panicked river of bodies, and that river tore them apart. Myra felt her mother's fingers slip from hers. She tried to grab back, but someone knocked into her from behind and she fell to the ground. By the time she got back to her feet, her mother was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos. "Mom," Myra shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the noise around her. She ran in the direction she thought her mother had gone, but every corridor looked the same. The lights flickered overhead. More weapons fire echoed from somewhere nearby. Myra found herself in a section of the station she did not recognize, surrounded by aliens who paid no attention to the small human girl crying in their midst. Then she saw them, tall creatures covered in hard black shells, like insects grown to the size of adults. Their eyes were clusters of red orbs that seemed to see everything at once. They carried weapons and moved with the precision of soldiers. Myra had learned about them in school. They were warriors who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. One of them noticed her. It approached with quick, clicking steps, and before Myra could run, it had grabbed her arm with a limb that felt like cold metal. She screamed and struggled, but that was far stronger than any human. "A young one," it said in a buzzing voice that came from a translator device on its chest. "Soft-skinned species. Human, perhaps." "Let me go," Myra cried. "I want my mom." They did not let her go. Instead, it carried her to where other hostages were being gathered, held behind a barrier of energy that hummed when anyone got too close. There were dozens of captives. Myra saw species she recognized and others she had never seen before. All of them looked afraid. The commander was named, and he had planned this operation for months. His people were locked in a dispute with the syndicate over mining rights in a nearby system. By seizing part of Velar Station and taking hostages, he hoped to force the merchant consortium to pressure the into giving up their claims. It was a simple plan. Take hostages, make demands, get what he wanted, release the hostages. The consortium cared only about profit, and a disruption to trade on Velar Station would hurt their profits. They would do whatever was necessary to end the situation quickly. Walked among his captives, examining them with his many eyes. Most were species he knew well. The ancient and fragile, the themselves who would make excellent bargaining chips, various merchant species who would fetch good ransoms. Then he stopped in front of the human child. He knew little about humans. They were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. Their military was small. Their territory was limited. They were considered unimportant by most of the galaxy's elder powers. But something about this small creature caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she looked at him. Most hostages cowered or cried or begged. This one was crying too, yes, but she was also watching him with eyes that seemed to be memorizing his face. "What is your name?" asked. "Myra," she said quietly. "Myra." "Do you know what is happening here, Myra?" "You're bad people," Myra said, "and you're going to be in big trouble." Felt what might have been amusement, though his species did not laugh. "Is that so? Who will put me in trouble?" "Everyone," Myra said. Dismissed this as the foolish hope of a frightened child. He had more important matters to attend to. He needed to broadcast his demands to the station authorities. He made his broadcast from the center of the captured district, surrounded by his soldiers and his hostages. He listed his demands clearly. The syndicate would withdraw from the disputed mining systems. The merchant consortium would recognize claims to those resources. Failure to comply within 6 hours would result in consequences. To emphasize his seriousness, pulled Myra in front of the camera. "This specimen is a human child," he announced. "Soft, fragile, easily broken. If my demands are not met, I will demonstrate on this creature what happens to those who oppose the Dominion." He pushed Myra back toward the other hostages and ended the broadcast. He did not know what he had just done. The broadcast traveled at the speed of light to the station's communication arrays, and from there, it was transmitted across the local network. The merchant consortium received it. The syndicate received it. The Galactic Council monitors received it. And so did every human vessel, outpost, and colony within range. Within minutes, the broadcast had been and forwarded. Within an hour, it had spread across half the galaxy. Humans had built something unique during their centuries among the stars. It was not a great military fleet or a vast empire. It was a network. Every human ship carried a quantum communication relay. Every human colony was connected to every other. News traveled fast among humans, faster than any other species had ever managed, because humans had decided early in their expansion that they would never be alone in the darkness between stars. On a mining station orbiting a distant gas giant, a crew of 40 humans watched the broadcast in silence. The foreman, a woman named, set down her coffee when she saw the child's face on the screen. "That's a human kid," said one of her workers. "I know," said. "What do we do?" Was already moving toward the communication console. She had family back on Earth she had not seen in years. She had no connection to this child named Myra, but that did not matter. That had never mattered to humans. She opened a channel that would reach every human vessel in 3 systems. "This is the mining station Prometheus 7. A human child has been taken hostage on Velar Station by forces. I am sending coordinates. I am altering course to respond. Any vessel that can reach Velar within 48 hours, please acknowledge." Acknowledgements began coming in before she had finished speaking. On a passenger liner carrying colonists to a new world, the captain changed course without consulting his company's headquarters. On a research vessel studying a distant nebula, scientists who had not touched a weapon in decades began checking their ship's defensive systems. On a hospital ship that was supposed to be heading to a medical conference, the chief doctor looked at her crew and asked a simple question. "How many of you have children?" Every hand went up. "Then you understand," she said. "Helm new heading, Velar Station." Across the darkness of space, humans began to move. They did not wait for orders from their governments. They did not wait for the military to respond. They simply moved because one of their own was in danger, and that was all that mattered. On a converted freighter hauling machine parts through a quiet trade lane, Captain Diana received the broadcast and felt something cold settle in her chest. She had seen the galaxy do terrible things in her 60 years of life. She had seen species go extinct. She had seen worlds burn, but she had never seen anyone threaten a human child on an open broadcast. She opened a channel to every human vessel she could reach. Her message was short. Her message was simple. They took a child. 4 words, that was all it took. In the command center of Velar Station, the consortium officials watched their sensors with growing confusion. Human vessels were changing course across multiple systems. None of them were military ships. None of them had been ordered to respond. But they were coming anyway, converging on the station from every direction like a wave that had been waiting to crash. One of the officials, who had worked with humans for decades, felt the first stirring of fear. "What are they doing?" his colleague asked. The official thought about all the humans he had known, the traders who always asked about each other's families, the workers who celebrated each other's births and mourned each other's deaths, the crews who treated their ships like homes and their like blood relatives. "They're coming," he said quietly. "All of them, every human who can reach this station in time, they're coming." "But why? It's just one child." The official looked at his colleague with something like pity. "You don't understand humans at all, do you?" He walked away before his colleague could respond. He had preparations to make. When the humans arrived, he wanted to be somewhere far away from thee and their hostages. He had worked with humans long enough to know that when they came for one of their own, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The first reports reached the Galactic Council within hours of the broadcast. Human vessels were changing course across 17 different systems. The numbers kept growing, 50 ships, then 100, then 200. The Council monitors had never seen anything like it. Elder of the studied the data with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and they had learned long ago that survival required understanding the patterns of the younger races. Humans had always puzzled them. Too emotional, too attached to individuals, too willing to take risks that made no logical sense. But now, watching the human vessels converge on Velar Station, began to understand something new about this strange species. "It's pack behavior," said Assistant, a younger who had spent time studying Earth's history. "We've seen it in their records. When one member of a group is threatened, the others respond. But this goes beyond anything in our models. These humans have no genetic relationship to the child. Most of them have never met her, yet they're treating her survival as their own." "Not pack behavior," said quietly. "Something else, something we don't have a word for." They began quietly moving their own vessels away from the sector. They had no desire to be caught in whatever was about to happen. Some lessons were best learned from a distance. The syndicate, who had initially welcomed this distraction, grew increasingly nervous. Their intelligence officers pulled every record they could find on human military history. What they discovered made them deeply uncomfortable. Humans had a long history of fighting each other, wars over land, resources, ideas. But they had an even longer history of putting aside their differences when outsiders threatened them. An analyst flagged a pattern in Earth's history. Whenever an outside force attacked something humans considered innocent, the response was disproportionate. Ships that had been fighting each other would suddenly unite. Enemies would become allies. The phrase that kept appearing in the historical records was simple but frightening. "Mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." The leadership ordered an immediate withdrawal from the sector. They wanted no part of what was coming. On Velar Station, Commander received updated sensor data and felt the first stirring of confusion. His second-in-command, a younger named, had spent more time among other species and understood the readings better than did. "Commander, The human vessels are converging on our position. Over 200 confirmed ships within a day's travel. Finally, said, their military responds, good, we can negotiate from a position of strength. Commander said slowly, those are not military vessels. Many eyes focused on the sensor display. Was right. The approaching ships were not warships. They were freighters and passenger liners, mining vessels and research platforms, a hospital ship, a ship registered as a mobile library, civilian vessels of every type and size, all heading toward Velar Station with no apparent coordination and no official authorization. I don't understand, said. Where is their fleet? Where are their warships? I believe they did not send them, said. Why do they not care about the child? Was silent for a long moment, trying to find words that would make sense to his commander. Finally, he spoke carefully. Commander, I have studied humans for many years. They are a strange species. They form attachments to individuals they have never met. They feel responsible for members of their species they share no genetics with. To them, every human child belongs to every human adult. Not legally, not officially, but in some way I cannot fully explain. That makes no sense. I know, Commander, but sense or not, 200 human vessels are coming. None of them are military because they don't consider this a military matter. The fleet is for wars. This is something else. What is it then? Thought about the human records he had studied, the stories they told, the way they spoke about children, the things they were willing to do to protect them. This is a family matter, he said finally, and we have threatened their family. Looked at the sensor data for a long time. He was a warrior. He understood war. He understood the exchange of threats and the calculation of force. But this was not war. The humans were not threatening him. They were not making demands. They were simply coming from every direction in ships that could not hope to match his military firepower. It made no sense, and things that made no sense were dangerous. What do they want? Asked. I believe they want the child returned safely. And if I do not return her? Did not answer. He did not need to. Both of them knew that the humans would keep coming. More ships would join. More and more until the entire sector was filled with them. And then something would happen. Neither of them knew what, but was beginning to suspect that it would be something they did not want to experience. In the holding area, Myra sat with her back against the energy barrier. She had stopped crying hours ago. A kind woman had given her some water and a small cake that tasted like honey. The other hostages had been watching with fear, but Myra had been watching with something else. She was thinking about her father. He was back on their colony world, probably worried sick about her and her mother. She was thinking about her grandmother on Earth, who always sent her birthday presents across the vast distances of space. She was thinking about her uncle, who worked on a mining station somewhere and told her stories about the adventures he had among the stars. She was thinking about all the humans she had ever met, and all the humans she had never met, and she was wondering if any of them knew what had happened to her. The commander approached the holding area. He looked at Myra with his many red eyes, and she looked back at him without flinching. Your people are coming, he said. I know, Myra said, though she did not actually know. She just believed. Why, you are one child. Why would they come for one child? Myra thought about this question. She thought about the stories her grandmother had told her, stories about humans on Earth long before they had traveled to the stars, stories about people helping strangers, stories about communities protecting their weakest members, stories about the simple belief that every life mattered. Because I'm human, Myra said finally, and humans don't leave each other behind. Stared at her for a long moment. He did not understand this child. He did not understand her species, but he was beginning to realize that his understanding did not matter. The humans were coming anyway, and he would have to decide what to do when they arrived. The Galactic Council sent a diplomatic team to attempt negotiation. They arrived on Velar Station and requested a meeting with the human representatives. But there were no human representatives. There was no official human response. There were only hundreds of civilian vessels forming a shell around the station, and thousands of human voices asking the same question over and over again. Is the child safe? Is the child safe? Is the child safe? The council diplomats did not know what to tell them. They had never dealt with a situation like this. They had never seen a species respond this way to a single individual in danger. One of the diplomats, an old who had spent decades studying alien cultures, finally understood what was happening. "They're not going to negotiate," he said to his colleagues. "They're not going to fight, they're just going to wait." Wait for what? For us to do the right thing. They're betting that the weight of their presence, the sheer number of them who came, will make it impossible for anyone to hurt that child. They're betting that the galaxy will see how much they care, and the galaxy will decide that it's not worth the consequences. The other diplomats looked at the sensor readings. 217 human vessels, more arriving every hour. None of them armed with anything more than basic defensive weapons, but all of them there, waiting, watching, bearing witness. What happens if they hurt the child anyway? The old shook his head. Then we'll learn what humans really are, and I don't think any of us want to learn that lesson. In the command center of the captured district, received word that more human ships were arriving. The number had passed 300. They were not attacking. They were not threatening. They were just there, like a promise of something that had not yet happened but might happen if things went wrong. Approached his commander with a new report. "Commander, I've been monitoring human communications. They're organizing something." "An attack?" "No, they're organizing relief supplies, food and medical equipment for the hostages. They want to send supplies to the captured district to ensure the hostages are cared for." Did not know what to make of this. His enemies were gathering in overwhelming numbers, and instead of preparing for battle, they were gathering food and medicine. "They're insane," he said. "Perhaps," agreed, "but they're insane in a way that seems to be working." Looked at the sensor display showing all those human ships. Then he looked at the holding area where the human child sat watching him with those strange, calm eyes. For the first time in his life, the commander felt something his species rarely experienced. Doubt. The human vessels did not attack. They simply arrived and waited, forming a shell around Velar Station that grew thicker with every passing hour. No demands, no threats, just presence. Hundreds of ships from dozens of colony worlds, crewed by thousands of humans who had dropped everything to be here. Captain Diana stood on the bridge of her freighter and watched the other ships on her sensors. She recognized some of them. The hospital ship Hope's Promise, the passenger liner New Horizon, a converted mining vessel called the Lucky Strike, ships she had seen in ports across the galaxy, crewed by humans she had shared drinks with in station bars. None of them had been ordered to come. None of them would receive pay or recognition for being here. They had simply heard that a child was in danger, and they had come. Diana opened a channel to the station. "Velar Station Control, this is the freighter Wanderer's Rest, requesting status update on the hostage situation in the Commerce District." The response came back stressed and confused. "Wanderer's Rest, be advised that the Galactic Council is handling negotiations. All vessels are requested to maintain distance." "Understood, Velar Station. We'll maintain our position. Just want to know if the child is safe." There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on the channel, a human voice. "Wanderer's Rest, this is Doctor in the medical bay. The child is Myra, age 8. Last confirmed status was alive and uninjured. Her mother, Dr. Sarah, is being held separately but is also unharmed." "Thank you, Doctor. We'll be here when you need us." Diana closed the channel and looked at her crew. They were a mixed bunch, old spacers and young rookies. Humans who had been born on ships and humans who had grown up on Earth. They had nothing in common except their species and their presence here. "We wait," Diana said. "We watch, and when they need us, we'll be ready." Her crew nodded. They understood. This was not about fighting. This was about showing the galaxy that humans took care of their own. Inside the captured district, Myra's mother had finally found where the hostages were being held. Sarah had spent hours navigating the chaos, avoiding patrols, and searching every corner of the seized territory. When she finally saw the energy barrier and the frightened faces behind it, her heart nearly stopped. Then she saw Myra. Her daughter was sitting cross-legged on the floor, talking quietly with a woman. She looked tired and scared, but she was alive. She was whole. Sarah approached the barrier. A guard raised its weapon, but Sarah ignored it. She had been ignoring her own safety for hours. She was not about to stop now. "Myra," she called out. Myra's head snapped up. "Mom." She ran to the edge of the barrier, pressing her hands against the energy field that separated them. Sarah pressed her own hands against the field from the other side. The energy hummed between their palms, warm and implacable. "I'm here," Sarah said. "I'm not leaving." "I know," Myra said. "I knew you'd come." The guard approached Sarah. "You will step back. This area is restricted." Sarah looked at the guard with eyes that held no fear. "I'm not going anywhere." "You will be arrested." "Then arrest me. Put me with my daughter. I don't care. I'm not leaving her." The guard hesitated. It had not been trained for this. It understood force and threats and the calculus of violence. It did not understand a mother who refused to leave her child even when threatened with imprisonment. Another human had appeared at the edge of the captured district. Then another. Then a dozen more. They were other parents, Sarah realized. Other humans who had been on the station when they attacked. They had found each other in the chaos, and now they had found the hostages. None of them were armed. None of them were making demands. They simply gathered at the edge of the barrier and refused to leave. Commander received reports of the gathering with growing unease. His soldiers were trained to fight enemies. They were not trained to deal with unarmed civilians who simply stood and waited and watched. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Waiting," said. "The humans outside the station are waiting. The humans at the barrier are waiting. They're all waiting for the same thing." "What thing?" "For you to make a choice, Commander." Understood choices. His species made choices based on strength and advantage. But this choice seemed to have no good options. If he harmed the hostages, the humans would respond in ways he could not predict. If he released them, he would appear weak. If he continued to wait, more humans would come, and the pressure would only grow. The Galactic Council sent another diplomatic team. This time, they brought a proposal. They could withdraw from the station with their honor intact. The mining dispute would be submitted to neutral arbitration. No charges would be filed. Everyone could walk away. It was a reasonable offer. It was the kind of offer that made sense in the galaxy's normal pattern of politics and negotiation. Was considering it when he received word that a human had requested to speak with him directly. Not a diplomat, not a military officer, just a human. The human's name was Admiral, retired. She was 73 years old and commanded a converted cargo hauler that she used for salvage work. She had come to Velar Station because she had seen the broadcast, and she had something to say. Agreed to speak with her through a communication screen. He was curious about what this old human wanted. Appeared on his screen with a face weathered by decades of space travel. Her hair was gray and her hands were spotted with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "Commander," she said, "I understand you're wondering why we're here. Your Galactic Council has made your position clear. The Council doesn't speak for us. No one speaks for us. That's what you don't understand." Tilted his head, "Then explain it to me." Was silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she spoke in a voice that carried the weight of a long life among the stars. I have 17, Commander. They live on 6 different worlds. I see them once a year if I'm lucky. But I would fly into a star for any one of them. I would fly into a star for any child on any of those worlds, whether I knew them or not. That's what it means to be human. We're not a fleet or an empire. We're a family, all of us. Every human who has ever lived. And when someone threatens our family, we come, all of us. No matter how far, no matter how long, we come. That is illogical, said. Maybe, but logic didn't build our species. Love did. Connection did. The simple belief that every one of us matters. You threatened a child, Commander. One small girl who has never hurt anyone. And now you have 300 ships outside this station and more coming every hour. Not because anyone ordered them to come, because they couldn't stay away. Was silent. He had no response to this. He had never encountered a species that operated this way. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to let Myra go home. I want you to let all the hostages go home. And I want you to understand something that might save your people a lot of trouble in the future. What is that? Leaned forward, her old eyes steady and unblinking. Never threaten a human child. Not ever. Because when you do, you're not threatening one person. You're threatening all of us. And we will never ever stop coming. The screen went dark, sat alone with his thoughts. Outside the station, the human vessels continued to gather. Inside the station, the crowd at the barrier continued to grow. And in the holding area, a small girl named Myra continued to wait, watching him with eyes that seemed to see right through his hard black shell. Made his choice. He walked to the holding area personally. His soldiers watched in confusion as he approached the energy barrier and deactivated it. The hostages stirred, uncertain what was happening. Reached down and picked up Myra with surprising gentleness. She was so light, so fragile. He carried her past his soldiers, past the other hostages, past the crowd of humans who had gathered to wait. He walked until he reached Sarah, who was still standing at the edge of the captured district. He placed Myra in her mother's arms. Go, he said, take your child and go. Sarah clutched her daughter tight, tears streaming down her face. She did not thank the commander. She did not need to. She simply turned and walked away, carrying her daughter to safety. The crowd parted to let them pass. Humans and aliens alike stepped aside, making a path for the mother and child. Watched them go. Then he gave the order for his forces to withdraw. The left Velar station without their demands being met, without their honor being satisfied, without anything to show for their operation, but had learned something. He had learned that there were forces in the galaxy more powerful than weapons. He had learned that strength came in forms his people had never imagined. He had learned what it meant to threaten a human child. Outside the station, the human vessels began to disperse. No shots had been fired. No revenge had been taken. But every species watching understood that something had shifted. The humans had shown the galaxy what they were made of, and the galaxy would not forget. The news spread across known space in the days that followed. The story of Velar Station. The story of 300 ships that came for one child. The story of a species that considered every one of its members to be family. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. The elder species debated what they had witnessed. They shared their analysis. They shared their intelligence reports. Species that had paid little attention to humans suddenly wanted to know everything about them. At the end of the session, the council speaker rose to make an announcement. Her name was First Counselor, and she was in who had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. The council formally requests human observers at all future diplomatic proceedings, she said. There was murmuring among the delegates. This was unprecedented. Humans were a minor species, barely established in the galaxy. Why would the council want them involved in major diplomatic matters? A young delegate asked the question that everyone was thinking. Why? Was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the sensor data showing all those human ships. She thought about the mother who refused to leave her child. She thought about the old admiral who had explained what it meant to be human. Because we finally understand what makes them dangerous, said. It isn't their weapons or their numbers. It's that they genuinely care about each other, every single one. And now we must ask ourselves what that means for the rest of us. The council chamber fell silent. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. If the humans would send 300 ships for one child, what would they do for a colony, for a world, for their species as a whole? The answer was obvious. They would do anything, everything, whatever it took. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. On Earth, Myra returned to her home on a quiet continent where the sun was warm and the sky was blue. She went back to her school. She played with her friends. She told them about her adventure on Velar Station, though they didn't quite believe all of it. A few weeks after her return, she received a message. It came from a ship somewhere far away, routed through a dozen relay stations to reach her small house on Earth. The message was from Captain Diana, the woman who had sent the first alert when the broadcast reached her ship. The message was short, just 2 lines. Glad you're safe, kid. You've got a lot of aunts and uncles you've never met. Myra smiled when she read it. She didn't understand everything that had happened on Velar Station. She didn't understand why so many people she had never met had come so far to help her, but she understood one thing. She was human, and humans took care of their own. She saved the message and added it to her collection. She had received hundreds of messages since returning home. Messages from humans on colony worlds she had never heard of. Messages from ship crews and mining stations and research posts scattered across the galaxy. Messages from strangers who had become family the moment they heard her name. Every message said something different, but every message meant the same thing. You matter, you are loved, you are never alone. That was what it meant to be human. And now, thanks to what happened on Velar Station, the whole galaxy knew it too.